about UCLA, and the same thing Missouri, another team that's kind of going in the wrong direction. So you've got some teams in front of you that are looking as if they're trending in a worse direction than you are. That's where you should feel confident if you're Carolina. But the main thing here that we're looking at now, I think we said it before we got on the show, and I think I'm going to have to agree with you. If they beat Duke, they're in the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
My concern, though, is that if they beat Duke, you would think at that point they're in. But you kind of have to get a little concerned about who are they going to play if they win that game, because they would more than likely, just, by guessing here, and again, you'd have to go through, do all the scenarios, they would probably be a 5 or 6 seed. We know that there is a possibility that some teams will not play in the ACC tournament, meaning your seeding could change. Mainly, you're concerned about the seeding of the teams below you changing. Because, look, this team, they have lost to... Syracuse is not a bad loss. That's still a game you should have won. Marquette is a bad loss. You're going to probably be playing someone similar to Marquette in that first-round game if you beat Duke. How do you handle playing that game? I don't think they shouldn't have to worry about it because it's the first day of the ACC tournament. What more do you need to be able to put in a good game in terms of motivation? But I don't know. Well, that's one where you kind of get a little bit worried, but I think unless something drastic happens, like unless they come out and get beat by like 30 or 40 in that game, they're probably still in.
If this team beats Duke, and we'll talk about that when we preview the game with the Blue Devils, and then they lose their first round of the ACC tournament, which is very possible with this Carolina team, and they miss the tournament, that is media-driven to knock Carolina out of the NCAA tournament. Because a team that is going to be 16-10, having gone 10-6 in the regular season part of the ACC schedule, deserves to play in the NCAA tournament.
And look, if they get to that, they're in. Because I'm going to tell you, if anything, they are in because of their history. Carolina is a brand. They will make sure that they will put them in if their resume is good enough to qualify in their eyes.
Now, I still think if they lose to Duke, which is 100% possible, and they lose their first-round tournament game, which is also entirely possible, I still think, depending on what goes around them, like Michigan State losing the other day really hurt them when they lost on Sunday. Duke losing at home to Louisville. Duke's going to have to beat Carolina and then probably win 2, if not 3 games in Greensboro to work themselves into the field of 68. I still think Carolina's in the field at 15-11. It's not pretty. You're probably playing in the first 4 this year, but you're in the field. And I think right now, that's all you're worried about. Most years, we're coming into the Duke game, we're battling for who's getting that 1 seed, who's getting the 2 seed, and where are you going? Are you going out west? Are you going to the Midwest? Are you staying home? Where are you going? Good thing is this year the tournament's all going to be in Indianapolis. It's going to be in one city.
You're in one spot the whole time, yeah.
So really what you're worried about is just seeding, because the way the NCAA tournament works is it's all about matchups. So Carolina can be a 10 seed, but still match up favorably to make a run in March Madness.
Right. The bracket that I saw released today by CBS Sports, and I forget who released that.
Like Lenardi has them against BYU as a 10 seed. Andy Katz
that wouldn't be bad.
Against Missouri.
That's the one that I saw.
With the 10 seed.
That bracket is interesting because you got Ohio State as your 2 seed then. I'm not super sold on Ohio State. I think they're a good basketball team, but I'm not quite at the level that probably some other people throughout the country are with them. And then, you're talking about the team that shall not be named from Philadelphia that's also in that side of the bracket. And I forget who the 6 seed is there. But it looks
Clemson.
Like that's not a bad group if you want to try to make a run. One of the other things that's interesting, if they get in the first 4, remember how much success teams from the first 4 that have won have had when it's come to the tournament. You can make runs because you can build momentum.
2019 was the first time a team did not make the second weekend of the tournament that played in the first 4.
There you go. So if that might be a good scenario for this team. Now, I'm not saying that I want them to lose. No way. You can still make a pretty good run as a 9 seed or a 10 seed. But if they were to be in the first 4, what I'm saying is it would not be the end of the world. You can still do some things from the first 4, but you don't want to have to be sweating it out on tournament day. You really don't.
No. So hopefully they take care of business. You beat Duke, so you get a sweep of your arch rival. But more importantly, you lock yourselves into the NCAA tournament, and then that way, everything you're doing from there is when you go to Greensboro. Roy Williams is going to say, "Yeah, we're here to play to win the game and win the tournament." Blah blah blah. You're all about really at that point positioning yourself to get yourself the best seed that you can get. Which right now, barring them winning 4 games in 4 days next week, their ceiling is probably an 8 seed. There was a chance before you lost, the Marquette game, and then the game last night in Syracuse.
We said a 6 seed.
You could have gotten yourself to a 6 seed. That's gone. You can move yourself to an 8 seed, which then you got to. The good news is that matchup wise, Kansas isn't going to be a 1 seed. You maybe run the risk of them putting you with the chance to get you and Gonzaga in the second round to relive the 2017 final. If Michigan's a 1 seed, they're going to put Carolina and Michigan on the same side because
I don't want to see either one of those teams that you just mentioned.
Right now, Lenardi has Baylor as a 1 seed. Baylor, not a great matchup. But Kansas proved the other night that you can beat them up playing the way you want to play. And then Illinois, another team that you may not want to play, but that's a team that's never been in that situation.
That would be the team that I'd want to play first, would be Illinois. Because I think that they've shown at times this year that they're inconsistent. And after that, I'd probably say Baylor if you're going with a 1 seed. I don't want any part of... I'm going to be honest with you. I would rather play Gonzaga than play Michigan. I don't want any part of Michigan right now. No way. I don't think this team matches up well against them. That team is senior-laden. I feel like the reason that you would say Gonzaga is because I think there's a legitimate chance they're going to be undefeated when they come into the NCAA tournament. I'd be stunned if they're not. Because they've simply dominated everybody in that conference. Now, maybe BYU pulls an upset against them in the West Coast Conference tournament?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe they do, which would honestly probably be the best scenario for them. But if they don't, there's a lot of pressure on them. But, look, that's the scenario that you're probably trying to get to. I think, something that would really help this team is if they could make a run similar to the one that the 2016 team did, where they got to the final. Maybe they don't necessarily win the ACC tournament final, but that would get you a lot of momentum. I feel like that could really benefit this team, but I just don't know if they've got it in them right now.
Well, the good news is that there will be fans in Greensboro, which means you can expect there to be a more Tar Heel partisan crowd in Greensboro.
Oh, you mean of the limited 5,000 capacity? I don't know the actual Greensboro Coliseum limit. So
we saw against Florida State. You're going to see it in the Duke game. Having those fans for this team will pay off for them in terms of having them support and just keeping them up. When this team goes down. So a lot to monitor here. I'm trying my best to get Joe Lenardi on the podcast. I actually was supposed to have him on last Friday, but as you can expect,
they dodged you.
His list for requests is ever expanding, and they forgot about the Roy's Boys podcast. But trying to get him on this week to take me all through all the scenarios that can best for Carolina as we inch our way closer to the NCAA tournament. So
it's more elusive than an easy win for the Tar Heels at this point in the season.
But so with that, we're going to go ahead and get out of here a little bit longer of a longer edition of tonight's podcast, but.
It was a good one. It's a good one. I think the people like it, right?
And Carolina, there's a lot to talk about this team, whether it's good or bad, that we got to discuss. So with that, Talk about the website, HeelToughBlog.com. We had you covered there on the Syracuse front. I previewed and recapped the game. I'll have the same for the Duke game. Sarah Wiley is out of commission this week. She's in Colorado, spending time with her family, so I'm taking you guys through all the previews and the recaps. I'll get you ready for Duke with my preview, and then, of course, after the postgame of everything, and then we'll get you ready for the ACC tournament. On the football side of things, weekly storylines are up on the website as well. Go read about everything regarding Carolina football within the last week or so. And on the diamond, Carolina took 3 of 4 from Virginia, on top of beating Elon last week. Anthony wrote about Carolina's week in review on the diamond a week ago. So check all that great content out, football, basketball, and baseball on HeelToughBlog.com. And lastly, we encourage you guys to rate, review, and subscribe to the pod. You can find us on every major podcasting platform. Most notably Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Podcasts. Give us a like. Review me as the host. Review Anthony as the co-host whenever he's co-hosting, or Mark as well. We want you guys to subscribe, though. We get every podcast in your podcast feed. Well, with that, thank Anthony for taking the time out of his day to talk a little Carolina basketball. We thank you guys for listening, and as always, go Tar Heels.